The following is brought to you by Element 14, the electronic design community where you can connect and collaborate with top engineers from around the world. Join now at element14.com.
So, okay, James, you're the bald engineer. I can see where you get the name because you look pretty bald, and you're not the balding engineer, which would be me. So yeah, tell us about yourself. How did you get into electronics?
So I got into electronics while I was in high school. I took this really unique class. It was just called communication technology, but it covered like video and electronics. And so that was actually, I did two things in that class that was really fun. I created my first short film, and I learned how to solder on a Heathkit training system. And so between those two, I knew I wanted to go one of those career paths. And then the next thing is I learned how to speed up a TI-85 by changing the capacitor on the RC oscillator. And then that made Breakout actually run at a playable speed. And so from there, I knew I was going into electronics.
That definitely sounds like some vintage 1990s hacking there. So what's one of your favorite projects that you have made?
One of my favorites is actually this one, which looks like a Super Famicom, but it has a Raspberry Pi inside.
Oh, I see. You've got USB in place of the cartridge. Nice.
Right. And then I 3D printed and laser cut jigs so that I didn't have to ruin the original plastic. But the thing that really got me about this project was I wanted the original power switch to work. And I didn't want this to cut power directly to the Pi. So I built a soft power controller that gives the Pi a signal to tell it when to shut down.
Oh, right.
And then the Pi tells the controller when it's done. And it turns out that a slide switch is a lot harder to do that with than just the push button. But I wanted the original switch to work.
Oh yeah, because it would stay in that state the entire time it's on. So you would have to look for the transition rather than a single pulse. So when you're building these things, what are your favorite tools to use?
I have two favorite tools. Electrically, my favorite tool is the oscilloscope. I worked at scope companies for about 10 years on high-end digital scopes. And so when it comes to debugging stuff with that, I'm a bit of a power user. And in fact, I use my scope more than my multimeter or multimeter.
Is that a Rohde & Schwarz?
Yeah, that's a Rohde RTM 3004.
I could tell by the length of the logo plate.
Yeah, actually, I found an early pre-production photo that had I think it was might have been the bandwidth that was printed on it, and mine doesn't have that. So
okay.
So electrically, the oscilloscope. Mechanically, I've got a CNC, a 3D printer, and my favorite tool, which is the laser cutter. And I think it's because the nerd in me just likes the idea of cutting stuff with a laser.
I got something to show you for that. I've just bought a house and I'm redoing the cabinets. So I pulled up the contact paper and I bought this tile to re-laminate the cabinets with. And I laser cut all of them to the correct depth of the cabinets. Because hey, if you can just push a button and have your laser make perfect cuts every time.
You know, I can use a table saw and I can use the miter saw, but it's so much easier to draw a rectangle and hit go.
So, what projects can we look forward to seeing from you in the future?
I've got an idea for an Apple II GS. You know, they have, I think they called it the Mega Chip. It's the kind of silicon on or a system on a chip, or VLSI, where they took all the logic, combined it into a single chip. I want to harvest one of those out of a 2GS and think about what I can do with that. The problem is I haven't run into many broken 2GSs, and I'm not about to take a soldering iron to mine. So that one's sort of in a research phase. And then lastly,
I have a 2GS motherboard laying around. Maybe I could send it to you. I don't know if I'll ever use it for anything.
I mean, if you're not going to use them, I would take them. I bought one on eBay where the battery had leaked, and so the Mega Chip is the only thing that I can recover from it. And then I started to realize I really basically need the processor, the Mega, and probably the WAS controller, and then something for ROM, but I'm less worried about ROM. But yeah, that's sort of where I'm at. Is I just can't. I'm not going to tear mine apart.
Yeah, that was actually a really cool Apple computer. It just kind of was lost in the shuffle. And has the same CPU as your Super Nintendo back there.
Yeah, actually, that's I think what really surprises me is the same processor, and then the whole idea that it was the 6502 and the whole history with that processor. It's just kind of like really amazing how all of these systems basically use the same chunk of silicon. But look at all the different things that they were able to do with it.
Yeah, it was either the 68000, the Z80, or the 6502 pretty much back then. Okay, final question. What is one of your favorite movies? Why do we always ask this?
It's a toss-up between Justice League and The Last Jedi.
Really?
I'm just kidding.
Trolling detected.
Yeah. So I studied a little bit of film. So like I mentioned that class in high school, I took a couple film classes in college. And so I really got into film noir.
Right.
And I really feel like my favorite movie is Dr. Strangelove.
Didn't we have someone else say that too?
Yeah, Matt Ergo also did say.
Yeah, you're actually the second person to bring up Dr. Strangelove.
That's
Interesting.
Funny. Yeah, I watched the movie, I studied it in school, and then just recently I read the book it was based on. And I would have to say the book, it's one of the few cases where the movie is better than the book.
Yeah.
But tones are so different that I think it really comes down to, do you like the comedy or the military aspect?
All right, so that's our second Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb lover. Cool. All right, well, thanks very much for talking with us today. For more information about James, the Bald Engineer, go to element14.com/presents to learn about him and all the other new content producers. We'll see you online.